to check in on that year-long curriculum. Hi, I'm Colleen. I'm an author and a currently unemployed librarian by choice. I decided last September, around the middle of the month, that I was going to embark on a year-long curriculum, and I gave myself assignments for each of my subjects, and I did decide that I was going to do a 12-month curriculum rather than a semester or even a month, because I just know what life is like for me as a mom of 4 kids who are extremely busy and has a writing career that I have to, do. And so I gave myself a bunch of assignments for different subjects, and I was really good about checking in for the first 2 months, I think. And then I sort of stopped checking in, which was okay because I did know that this was going to be an assignment I gave myself that sort of ebbed and flowed throughout the year. But now that it's the end of month 9 and I am doing this for 12 months, I thought I should probably check in and let you all know how it's going and how I envision the last few months going. Is it month 9 or is it month 8? I started October 1st, so that would mean I end in September. So I have June, July, August, and September left, right? So I have 4 months left actually, not 3. All right, whatever. It's like month 8, 9 check-in. So let's go just like subject by subject. And we're gonna start with the one that I've definitely been having the most fun with and done the most, and that's history. And my history assignment was that I wanted to research life in the medieval period with a focus on the early Middle Ages. So the time period from 500 to 1000 rather than from 1000 to 1500. And I've been having a little bit of issue finding thorough sources on that time period because there's just so much more written in the 1000 to 1500. But that does not mean that I haven't found out a lot of cool things. Since last talking, I have finished 1 book, but more than that, I have a new favorite podcast, and it's Gone Medieval, and I've listened to, I don't even know how many episodes because there's a huge backlog, and I just go through and pick episodes. But I think that's been the most helpful because when I go for a walk or I clean my house or I'm in the car for a really long time alone, which happens sometimes, not a ton, I'm listening to something about the medieval period, and it's not always a thing that I'm hyper interested in. This is loosely based on a project I want to work on this year and next year and the year after, because it's going to be a very long project. But I'm just getting more sort of surrounded by medieval life, which I am really enjoying. I mean, I'm listening to a lot of Eastern European medieval information, which I never really thought about before, which has been very cool. And I've listened to some things about religious life. It's been awesome. So the book that I read though and finished is Medieval Women by Eileen Power. I finished this, I want to say in like March. I finished it a while ago. And I really liked this book. I took a ton of notes. It's supremely helpful for what I was looking for, the role of women in the Middle Ages. I find that very interesting. I find you can blame my AP US history teacher in high school. She liked to teach history with a focus on the people that are often left out of history, and I feel that way about women in the medieval period because they're not huge movers and shakers in terms of when you're getting generalized information about the medieval period. You hear more about the men in power, and so this has been really interesting to read, and I really liked it. It's broken into chapters, and I'm gonna read you the chapters just so you know. And I did find some more interesting than others. Chapter 1 is Medieval Ideas About Women. Chapter 2 is The Lady. Chapter 3 is The Working Woman in Town and Country. 4 is The Education of Women, and 5 is Nunneries. And I would say the most interesting chapters to me were probably the Medieval Ideas About Women, The Lady, and Nunneries. Those 3 chapters in particular, I really enjoyed a lot. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a second, but first I'm going to show you 2 new books I got for this project. You will notice that I haven't read to completion any of the other books I put on my very long list, but I couldn't help it and grabbed these 2 for myself. Also, I do think some of these books that I have are going to be books I more use like research texts, where you look at that index, you find the chapters that are relevant to what you want to learn, and then read from there. I don't really feel like specifically like Mysteries of the Middle Ages by Thomas Cahill, which I do have on my reading list. I don't think I'm going to read that whole book. I think I'm going to read parts of it though. But here are the two new books I got. First, I got Femina by Janina Ramirez, A New History of the Middle Ages through the women written out of it. I am hyper excited to read this. It starts with a quote from Hildegard of Bingen, who is not of the time period I'm looking at, but very interested in her because she is a nun, I think, abbess. She has a religious title. The chapters in this book are cool, so I'm going to read them to you. Chapter 1, Movers and Shakers. Chapter 2, Decision Makers. Chapter 3, Warriors and Leaders. Chapter 4, Artists and Patrons. Chapter 5, Polymaths and Scientists. 6, Spies and Outlaws. 7, Kings and Diplomats. 8, Entrepreneurs and Influencers. 9, Exceptional and Outcast. And I am just kind of looking forward to reading through these chapters. I do know that this is going to be a book that I read slowly and read a chapter here and there. I'm reading a different nonfiction book right now, kind of like that, just reading a chapter here or there. So I don't think I'll start this one for, I don't know, a couple months, probably like July at the earliest, but I will look forward to getting to it. And then another one that I feel like I probably won't read the entire thing of is The History of the Franks by Gregory Tours. And this is very early this is like the 500 time period of the early Middle Ages. I would say this book straddles the fall of antiquity and like the birth of the medieval period, if that makes sense. Gregory of Tours was a bishop in Tours, which makes sense. And he was bishop until 594 when he died. So this is going to be the 500s, which I do find that period hyper interesting because it is one of those transitional periods. It'd be interesting to live through something like that. Are we living through something like that? Who knows? We might be. So this is one I think I'm probably just going to read a bit. This is cool. The chapters are called books. And this book 5 I just opened to, it says, here begin the chapter headings of book 5. And I love, this is like how more to Arthur is written. 1, how the younger Childebert began to reign and what happened to his mother. 2, how Merivach married Brunhild. 3, the war with Chilperic and the hideous behavior of Rauchin. 4, how Roquelin came to Tours. 5, the bishops of Lancre. So it's really well organized, which is going to be helpful. Thank you, Gregory of Tours, who did not do that. Someone else did in the editing process in the last 1,500 years. If I were to give myself a grade in history, I would say right now I have an A. I know I'm not burning through these books, but I'm doing as well as I thought I would be doing, like maybe an A-. I don't have an A+. An A+ would be if I'd read everything, but I'm going as fast as I thought I would go, if that makes sense. So now let's move on to religion. Religion is sort of intertwined in this, and that was that I specifically wanted to learn more about life in nunneries, and this book answered my main question. So my main question, which I hadn't said in my intro video, was I wanted to know what it was like for women who had been married to powerful men and were sent to nunneries. Either their husband died or their marriage was dissolved in multiple different ways that it could happen. And either it was considered not a true marriage or, things are shady in the early medieval period when you think about the transition of Europe from a predominantly pagan continent to a predominantly Christian continent. So those pre-real hard Christian marriages, you have some switching around of partners that are not necessarily allowed later, if you read the Tudor period. But I really wanted to know were those women forced to take vows, etc.? And the answer is no. I always thought that those women were like suddenly like, you've been queen, your husband died, and now you're going to be a nun for the rest of your life. And the coolest thing I found in this book is that wasn't actually the answer. It was more that they sort of rented from the nunneries and they paid them rent, and it really helped nunneries exist because you had these wealthy women who just wanted to like hang out and they were going to like be their rich selves in a quiet nunnery, but they were going to pay you money so you could keep this nunnery moving and you could keep the gardens growing and the farm going and do the sort of charity work that you wanted to do. And so that was awesome. Tick. My question was answered in one chapter of a book. How cool. That all is not to say that there were not women who were put in that situation who didn't eventually take vows, because you have to think also at the time period religious life was huge. You know, devotion was huge. Okay, let's move on to another subject I'm doing pretty well in, and that is science. So my science assignment was that I wanted to grow 30 pumpkins in my garden. I had some really good years of pumpkin growing in like 2020 and 2021, which I spent, most of my day in my yard, all day, every day then. My kids were very little. We were in a pandemic. I since then have not had good luck. I've grown pumpkins every year, but I've gotten 1 or 0, which stinks. So this year I really wanted to put down a concerted effort to grow pumpkins. So I got over 100 pumpkin seeds, at least. But last year I planted over 100 pumpkin seeds and I got 0. But I spent the fall specifically concentrating on one raised bed. I put a lot of decaying matter in there, like literally to the point that I found my cucumber and zucchini plant had kind of grown under this evergreen bush. And I assumed because there was no light there that there was nothing down there. And then when I was cleaning out everything during my fall cleanup, I found a bunch of like white cucumbers and zucchinis. Like they didn't grow properly, obviously because they didn't have any sunlight. But I put like those in there. I put up a bunch of chopped up roots. I emptied my pots because I have like herb pots that I put near my front step. And I like to put those pots away for the winter in the garage. So I always empty them completely. So I put all the roots from my herbs and the old herb plants in there, chopped it all up, and then let it overwinter. So I really concentrated on one bed, and I'm going to put pictures up throughout this. And I right now probably have the picture up of the one bed that I concentrated on. Those lettuce plants you can see are reseeded from last year. I don't think I had lettuce in that raised bed last year, but I had it in a bunch of other raised beds. We get a lot of bunnies. One of my friends, who's also an author, who has a farm, she told me that when the bunnies get really bad, she just plants a bunny salad bar, and it's like lettuce, you're not going to eat. That's specifically for rabbits. So that's what that is. I planted my seeds only about 10, 12 days ago because we had a very cold May. As I'm editing this video, I'm realizing my garden has changed an insane amount. So I'm going to pop in a few clips of what it actually looks like now rather than the long spiel I gave you like 4 days ago when I filmed. And I did realize that I filmed it the wrong way. I'm sorry, you're going to get some vertical video mixed in here. But this is a better look at what the garden looks like, much more promising. I filmed that about 5 days ago, and I've had a literal explosion of pumpkins and gourds in this raised bed, as well as other places. So I'm just going to give you a quick tour of how everything's looking now. Here's one of my other beds, which is fantastic. Those are all a mix of pumpkins, zucchinis, and I think winter squash. The sad news is I had a ton of green bean seedlings right here, and the rabbits ate them all. And the even sadder news is over here, I had a ton of corn seedlings and the rabbits ate them all, but I'm going to buy some more corn. But all these are all gourds, So it's looking good. There's one other spot I'm going to show you. This is my junk area. As you can see, our drain pipes here. This is our deck. And I have had really good luck growing here in the past because I usually put all my empty pots in here, but I didn't do that this year. So when I put stuff in here, I wasn't sure if it was going to sprout. But it did. I put a mix of really little pumpkins and really huge pumpkins in here. But you can see there's also like weeds in here. I don't take very good care of this, but it tends to still do well on its own. Now we wait. So I have a lot of seedlings all over. And we just wait. And I will give you an update maybe in like 2 months to see, because we're getting to the point I need to wait for everything to get a little bit bigger, and then I will thin some to just give them a little bit of a better chance. I hate thinning. I hate doing that. But I'm kind of like, I don't know, maybe I should. I might like only thin half of the box. Maybe that'll be a good idea. I don't know. It is like an experiment. It's like running a science experiment. History's going well. Religion went well. Question answered. And science is going. I'm cautiously optimistic. I also know there's a really good chance I'll get 0. So now let's move in to the subjects I'm maybe not doing as well at. Okay, so math. I was doing really well in the fall because I was like super into knitting. So I made one of my daughters a scarf. I don't know where it is right now. It was green and she loved it. And then her twin sister wanted a Hufflepuff themed scarf because she likes Harry Potter. And I think the last time I checked in, I had a chunk of yellow at the bottom, and it's gonna be yellow or gold and black striped. And so since then, all I've done is a little stripe of black. And I wasn't into knitting this winter. Sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. But I have renewed interest. In the summer, we have like a sunroom, 3-season room, whatever. I turn it into an art room, and I have times where the kids have to spend time in there. And I spend time in there with them too. It's like our anti-screen time, but like you don't have to be outside. You can be in there doing art. And like my oldest has to partake, but he's not, he's a 13-year-old boy. And so he just had his birthday. For his birthday, I got him some really cool slime. So I was like, you can have slime time if you don't want to do watercolors, or I have some like fiber crafty stuff in there. We've got a loom, obviously markers, pencils. My one daughter wants me to put a Lego table in there, which I was like, okay, I have to hit up some estate sales and see if I can find a good table for Legos. But I'm planning on that being my art room project, to finish that scarf, so that when the fall hits, I will make that blanket. I'm gonna be honest, my math assignment was to make this blanket that I had made once before that I really love, but it's very time consuming. It was time consuming when I made my first one when I was married but had no children, and knitted a lot. Like I worked at a school, I'd get home from school and turn on TV and knit for like 2 hours. And so that's not really what life looks like anymore. So I would say my adapted goal is to start that blanket before October 1st and then finish it next year. That'll be my next year curriculum for math, is going to be finish that blanket. And so I'd love to have just like it's a 12 square blanket. I'd love to have one square complete by the end, because I'm going to finish this, obviously, this scarf for my daughter, which won't take that long, but I'm not knitting a ton. Also, it's hot out now. It's like 80 degrees today. So like having wool on you isn't super fun. But I'm going to finish that scarf, and I want to get one square done so that for curriculum 2026, 2027, I can do that blanket, and hopefully I'll be motivated. And in my defense, when I made this blanket before, I used to take huge chunks of time off. I think it took me 6 months to make this blanket with no kids. So if it takes 3 years, that's okay. Now we're getting into some kind of sad stuff. And the reason I did this curriculum is that I wanted to relearn French. That was like why I came up with this. I was like, I miss French. I miss understanding a different language. I feel like I'm getting older. My brain is just not working as well as it used to. And so I was at my town's library book sale fundraiser, and I found a French book, and I was like, I'm gonna buy this. And then I was like, I'm gonna make a year-long curriculum, and it's gonna include learning French. So this is my book, and you may notice that my bookmark has been in the exact same spot since I think the second week of November. I have done no French. I never want to pick up French. When I have free time, I want to do some history. I want to garden. I love to garden. I want to read about nuns. I want to knit. I did knit an entire scarf and then, like a 10th of another one. So I did knit a lot in the fall, and I never wanted to pick up French. I had to force myself to do it a couple times. And so my plan for this summer is to just sort of try to put French back in the forefront of my mind and see whether I ever want to do it. So like when my kids are in the art area, do I want to knit or do I want to work on French a little bit? Maybe I want to work on French. I don't know. And I feel kind of weird about it since this was what started it all, but it's also okay. I don't need to learn French. I'm 43 and it's just, I'm never going to live in France. I went to France this year, which was amazing. And I got along just fine with my really broken French and knowing English, which we're very spoiled that English is spoken in a lot of countries. And I'm okay with that. We'll see if I ever pick this up, but I'm not going to pressure myself. I'm okay taking an F in French this year. Words I never thought I would say. If you've been here from the beginning, lit has been a little bit of a rocky road. My original plan for lit is that I wanted to read some of my favorite children's classics and some that I hadn't read out loud to my children. Originally, I said on Sunday afternoons in this room, nice and cozy with a plate of snacks. I was going to read out loud for 30 minutes. They could snuggle on the couch and eat cookies. Well, that never happened. I did start reading Redwall to my two youngest, to our twins. They share a bedroom. And we read a few chapters before bed a couple times. And then finally, one of my twins was like, Mom, we hate this book. I was like, okay, I'm not going to make you read a book you hate. So where I left you during my last check-in, which I think was in December, I said that I was going to think of a new lit assignment. January, February, March, and April were some of the craziest writing career months of my life, with deadlines and just stuff that I'm not going to go into. And so I really wasn't thinking about like a lit assignment. It's a hard one for me to give myself an assignment because like I read 70 books a year and I write a few books a year. And so like some years 1, some years 2, some years 4. And so I was like, I can't think of what I want this assignment to be. And so I was literally going to do this check-in without a lit assignment, that I just was going to have an incomplete and lit. But then like 2 weeks ago, or maybe it was even last week, my daughters and I like save YouTube videos that I want to watch but are very relaxing for when they're crabby. They're little kids. Sometimes they have meltdowns after school where we can just lay on the couch and I can put on a video that's not going to upset them in any way, but also not make them excited. It's just kind of an even video. And Book Leo, who's a great booktuber, had a video that was called something like, I'm in the middle of 8 books, and so I'm going to do a 24-hour read-a-thon to try and finish as many. And so I put that on. Her voice is very quiet, and it helps my girls relax. And when I was watching it with them, I said, oh, this would be kind of fun. Maybe this summer we'll do a 24-hour read-a-thon. And they were all on board. So we made some parameters. So my lit class is now that one day this summer we're going to do a 24-hour read-a-thon. My kids are all going to participate in their own way. What this is going to mean, obviously, as cute and adorable as these 20-something girls are having their sleepovers with their BFFs, reading a ton, that is not what my life has looked like since college. Like I could have seen my friends from college and I doing something like that. But life wasn't like that then. Like we just didn't do this kind of stuff. Like we just lived. And even like when I was like 27, if I had asked my good friends who were all teachers at that point if they wanted to do this with me, they would have been like, no, we're all working full time and getting reading specialist degrees or getting a master's in another field or so. My plan is we are going to have a day focused on reading, and I will probably wake up early so I can read a little bit before the kids wake up. We will do it on a day they don't have camp. For my girls, it will look like let's read in the morning, let's read after lunch, let's read maybe before dinner, and let's read before bed. For my son, I already told him he has to read 4 books for summer reading of his choice. His teacher said they could be novels or graphic novels. He informed me he will be doing 4 graphic novels. I don't care. I'm a children's librarian. Any reading is good reading. So I told him what I would like him to do is to try to read one of his books that day. So like pick one of your graphic novels, you're going to try to read the whole thing in one day. Because also how amazing for him who does not like to read, and it's really a struggle, and we will argue about it all summer because he will want to wait until 7 days before school starts to try and read 4 graphic novels. So I was like, how great will it be for you to just be done with one, Okay. It's just one of those things, you have a kid who hates reading when you absolutely love reading, whatever, it's fine. But we'll do that probably in July, I'm guessing. They have a lot of camp in June. So it'll probably be a day in July. We'll get a ton of reading done. I will most likely put it in a way that I finish several books over those 24 hours. Like I'll probably, in the weeks leading up, get kind of far along in a couple books because I'm a completionist and I like to check things off a list. And I will lightly record it. Obviously, I don't record my children at all and I don't put them on here, but I'll try to record what I'm reading and maybe some like silent check-ins with maybe music in the background. So that will be my lit now. And I feel okay about that. Obviously, it's not like a 12-month thing. It's a one-day thing. But I do a lot of lit, so I don't feel terrible about this. It is what it is. I mean, I also made myself a bingo for this year. Like, I have a lot of other lit stuff going on. Now, most excitingly, I'm adding a class. I am picking up a class for the last quarter or whatever this is, trimester. And it's gym. So I was doing a really good job working out last fall. I was doing like mat workouts and weights almost every day, like 6 days a week probably. I was really, really good. And then it was for some health stuff, trying to avoid having to do some health stuff by trying to fight my genetics. And then around January, realized you can't fight genetics. And so I took some medical steps forward, which I'm not anti-medicine. I just am a competitive person. But then I didn't work out at all. Like I still go for walks all the time. My sister lives nearby and we try to walk together like at least 3 times a week to just gab and get some steps in. And I walk by myself a few days a week. But I stopped doing my workouts. And so my gym class for my last quarter is that I want to do a mat workout at least 4 times a week. What is a mat workout? So it can be yoga, it can be weights, it can be I find a Zumba class online, it can be I go to a Zumba class, which probably won't happen because I don't belong to a gym or anything. But it has to be something on top of my walks. I can't just walk. I used to teach group fitness, which is crazy, in my 20s, and I really miss that. I really miss going to group fitness classes, but it doesn't really work with my life right now because there aren't, like I've looked, the type of group fitness I like, there aren't classes at like 10 a.m., which makes sense. They're before work and after work. But for me, work is really until 8 and then from 3 till 10 p.m. So it's fine. I can do it here. I used to teach them. I wrote about this on Threads. I did this winter do like 30 minutes of an hour class I used to teach called Boot Camp Ballerinas. And I was dying. I used to do this class in its entirety, yelling the entire time. And I can barely do it not speaking. And so that was a little disheartening. I am, like 14 to 10 years older from when I was teaching that. So it's okay. But I want to get back in that, which will probably include me waking up earlier than my kids to get that workout in, which is fine. Because if I do want to still walk with my sister when her kids are at camp, then I will have to be already done with this workout before the kids go to camp, because camp's much shorter than school. So I also have to, do my job when they're at camp. So that's my plan. I'm going to get some good workouts in and hopefully get myself into a routine in which I can keep going through the fall, through the winter, through the spring. And it's not something that I drop. That's the plan. Okay, that's my curriculum check-in. So let's go through my grades. A in history. A+ in religion because I answered the question. It wasn't that hard though. I didn't actually have to put that much effort into it. So I don't know. We'll do a pass-fail for that. Passed religion. Science, I would say I have an optimistic B. We'll see what happens if I get those 30 pumpkins, but I think I'm doing a good job so far. What's next? Math. I'll give myself a C+ in math, which is very realistic as to what I would get in math through my whole career. And then what do we have next? Next, we have French. French, I'm going to give myself an F. I'm going to go ahead and just do it. And it's okay. And maybe I'll be able to pull that grade up a little over the summer, but I'm feeling fine about that. Literature, I currently have an incomplete, but I'm hopeful I'll get a pass-fail. I'll get a pass in that because it is only one day. I feel weird giving myself an A in one day. And wellness, we haven't started it yet. Gym. My kids call it wellness now, but gym is what we called it. In the 90s, I am hopeful I'll get an A in. I don't have a grade yet. I didn't take gym in high school. I took dance. You could take dance instead of gym, which was good for me because then obviously I went on to be a group fitness instructor. But there we have it. These are the worst grades I've ever gotten in my life because I was actually a very good student, but it's okay. When I was a student, I didn't have 4 kids of my own. All right, there's my check-in. This was a very rambly video. If you're doing a curriculum, I hope it's going great. I hope all of your classes are going as well as history is going for me. And please give me your check-in in the comments. If not, if you don't want to write big words or sentences, just in the comments, tell me what your favorite subject to study is. And you can go as broad or specific as you want. You can put math, or you can put late antiquity. All right. I'll see you soon. Bye.